Did you do your homework already? Hey, how's it going, everybody? My name is SockBot, and today I'm sorry if I just gave you a flashback to school if you're no longer in school, but hello, how is it going today? How are you doing? Good. Probably just didn't answer because this isn't Dora the Explorer. But today I want to talk about something a little bit strange and a little bit of a weird relation between something I was thinking about the other day, and that has to do with certain games and suspension of disbelief, which might be familiar to you if you are a drama student or were a drama student at some point, because I was. If you didn't know, I did a play or two in my time. Always the supporting roles. Darn you, Connor. Wouldn't it be funny if Connor was actually watching this? And of course his name's Connor, right? Like, now I know that that's hilarious, that his name is Connor, and him taking things from me is hilarious, but, I only realize that in therapy when I'm making videos. Anyways, today, with this concerningly long intro, I want to talk a little bit about different games, and specifically very strange games, and what the point is when your game is becoming too strange. And if you have watched my previous videos, you might know the answer to that already, but hopefully there are still some intricacies in this that you will find interesting. But if you like this sort of video, which is more of like an essay-type discussion video, let me know. Leave a like down below, and feel free to subscribe if you want to see more like this and or more like my other things. I did just post a review on Simulacrum, which is a fantastic survival horror game. I suggest you go watch that if you are at all interested in survival horror or just want to support the community, because it was made by a current creator within Dreams, who is actually getting a little bit popular there too. So go feel free to check that out, and yeah, let's get right into it. So when I say suspension of disbelief, like I said, I'm probably giving you flashbacks to that one theater class that you took in 8th grade, so sorry about that. But if not, you might have no idea what I'm talking about at all, and that's totally fine. From my experience, this is a theater phrase that means a willingness to suspend your criticism of something that you're watching to believe something surreal. In essence, that means that it's the ability to ignore your sense of what's real and realism in general, and any sort of logic, for the sake of enjoying something. The most basic example that I can give of this is the Lion King musical, because I think everyone's at least seen a poster advertising it, and if not, I will flash one on screen here for a second. Okay, there we go. Obviously, the actors in Lion King don't look exactly like lions and hyenas, and the set might not look exactly like the savannah. You know it's all smoke and mirrors, but you ignore that to focus on and enjoy the story and the music being presented to you. Now, this isn't limited to live shows. Any director of a movie, a video game, a play, a musical, any director has to think of this while they're directing their piece. While it's too unbelievable, it might seem cheesy or somewhat lazy, and while it's almost too believable, you run into that sort of uncanny valley situation where it's too close to something that the audience is familiar with, but not quite right, and people tend to hate that. For an example of the second one, look at the recent trailer of Cats, and more specifically, the reactions to that trailer. Yeah. Now, that was a lot of background, and while I still haven't scratched the surface of the debate surrounding suspension of disbelief and what it relates to, I want to get back to game design. Basically, the idea for this video came about when I was playing Bloodstained Ritual of the Night. If you haven't heard of Bloodstained, it's a sort of spiritual cousin to Castlevania, because supposedly they're not done with Castlevania. But anyways, I was thinking about suspension of disbelief because obviously this ridiculous amount of rooms in Dracula's, or, well, in this case not Dracula's castle, could not exist in any real castle. Frankly, if Bloodstained or Castlevania castles were real, they'd look more like fat piles of cubed stone than an imposing lair for Dracula, or obviously not Dracula at all whatsoever. Wink, wink. But that's easy to ignore because instead of focusing on why this castle makes no sense, you focus on the layout, making the game really, really fun. So I wanted to make a video about this because I feel like this idea can be reverse engineered in a way to help a lot of new game designers. A lot of people feel the need to create hyper-realistic games and assets in Dreams, and I go on and on about how this isn't necessary in my other videos, but today I want to focus on how this could be negatively affecting your level design. In my opinion, you should never sacrifice potential fun for realism in your levels. For example, the other day I was practicing in Dreams designing a side-scrolling platforming shooter-type game, because, you know, those are my favorite types of games to play, so I figured I'd make one myself. In this game, you play as a young kid who exits his bedroom to find his house filled with monsters with only his childhood toys to defend himself. Now, obviously, this starts off as unbelievable, but the setting was somewhat normal and somewhat relatable, as it was a generic suburban house. Well, relatable relatable to whoever's lived in a generic suburban house, I suppose. But with a side-scroller, there wasn't a lot I could do while keeping the scale of the house realistic. Sure, I could have the kid get out of the house quickly and enter a fantasy setting where I'd seemingly have less rules and be able to create sprawling architecture perfect for platforming and shooting, but then I'd have created all these suburban house assets for no reason past the intro. So instead, I decided to follow the Castlevania example that I mentioned earlier, and, well, I decided to just stop caring so much about realism. I decided to make the entire first level in the house, but expand its size significantly to give me more freedom with the level design. It's the same concept as I mentioned earlier. If I can reuse the house assets and focus my time on making the gameplay entertaining, no one is going to ask questions about why my house suddenly has 12 stories and 50 rooms. In other words, they will have no problem suspending their disbelief in this case. Now, if the game was less fantasy and more realistic, like the game Bully for the PlayStation 2, if you've ever played that, the suburban house would not really make sense for a platforming segment. I mean, wouldn't make sense to platform at all in that game, but you get the idea. I guess what I'm trying to say here is, for the most part, we as creators shouldn't be afraid to go further from realism in level design. By and large, players aren't going to ask questions about why a house has 20 bedrooms, or why the trees in a forest are only 15 feet tall relative to the main character, or why the chandeliers don't break when you swing from them, for example. So, TLDR, go ahead, Sia. Make those chandeliers grabbable and swing away. Okay, bad joke. But basically, most games don't have realistic level design, and I think that us creators would do well to acknowledge that players are generally fine with this so long as the gameplay remains fun. Spend less time worrying about all of this, and I say go crazy with your levels. It might make your level a bit weirder and a bit less logical, but like I've said before, a sense of weirdness in a video game is always good. But hey, let me know what you guys think. Maybe most people do notice these sorts of things and would prefer some sort of explanation as to why the levels in Metroid make no structural sense in reference to their described size, or why the characters in Mortal Kombat can still fight after a snapped spine. But let me know what you think in the comments down below. But for now, thank you so much for watching. Like the video if you liked it. Feel free to subscribe if you want to see more of this sort of thing. And yeah, like I said, if you guys think differently or if this stuff really does bother you, let me know about that. I just realized that I'm like severely out of frame. Let me know about that. But anyways, have a wonderful day. I will talk to you guys in the next video. And for now, goodbye!